Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today we're going to continue with Surah Al-An'am, verses 100 to 101. And today, before I go into the commentary and the verse itself, those last verses that we picked for today, according to the Talim syllabus, I just wanted to share a little bit about the introduction to this surah, as it gives sort of an explanation as to the subject matter which we were covering. And with that, it first has the Muslim Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu, he explains about the title Al-An'am, that it means cattle, and he says that the surah probably derives its title from the subject dealt with in verses 137 to 139, where cattle, that is the word an'am, meaning cattle, have been condemned as one of the main causes of idolatry. At another place, the Quran says that idolatry or shirk makes idolaters sink so low as to render them, as it were, like mere cattle or animals. And he says in the introductory, this is a lengthy introductory, but I just took the portion which describes around and after the verses which we are covering. And Hazrat Muslim Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu says that the surah further proceeds to say in the 6th ruku that only those who have fear of God in their hearts can accept the truth, and the Prophet is told to address his appeal to them. For the others, it is necessary that fear of God be first created in their hearts, so that arguments and reasons may benefit them. Further, it is most essential for the progress of Islam that special attention be paid to the spiritual training of believers, whether rich or poor, because since the Prophet is mortal and must die, only the community of the believers remains behind to preach and propagate the divine message. In the 7th and 8th rukus, the Holy Prophet ﷺ is also is asked to tell disbelievers that they are foolish to find fault with him merely because the promised punishment does not speedily overtake them. The sending of punishment is outside his province and lies entirely in the hand of God, who sends it whenever he thinks fit and opportune. Moreover, the sender of the punishment should also be the knower of the unseen. He should know fully the future of man, because he who does not possess the knowledge of what the future holds in its bosom is likely to punish a person who, being at present the enemy of truth, may be deserving of punishment today, but may be destined to effect a true reformation in himself tomorrow. So the sending of punishment or the deferring thereof is God's own work. Towards the end of the ruku, it is stated that when God alone knows the unseen, it is unwise not to preach the truth to a person who may appear to be an enemy of truth, because in the unlimited knowledge of God, he may be destined to accept the truth at some future time. So this is a fascinating understanding or guidance to the believers, that when we are preaching, and this is something that our beloved Huzur Aidul Talib bin Aziz has specifically told the Canada Jamaat, that we should improve upon our tabligh. And this is guidance for us that we should take from the Holy Quran, that we never know, even some person who may be denying the message, that there might be at some stage that they could change and reform themselves and turn towards the message. Only Allah is all-knowing. And there's also a very interesting point here, which is very beneficial to know that when we are preaching to Christians specifically about God's ability to forgive and God's attribute of justice, that and this is something that normally I take up in my Tabligh class, and those who are listening, they if they don't take up the Tabligh class and listen to the Tabligh class, it's beneficial for them so that they can have some argumentation. I will be, inshallah, discussing this topic in one of my classes in the future about the salvation. And this is an issue which does come up very often with Christians. And it's a matter of fact, probably the very first issue that always comes up. And the Christians always say that God can't forgive a person because that is his justice, because people are sinners, and they're born sinners, and they're born inclining towards sin. And here in the Holy Quran, it's mentioning that there is a difference about God in having the ability to forgive or to punish, because God has complete knowledge. And there is, when we make a comparison to a judge, a ruler, who has the ability to punish someone in his court or not, or to forgive, if they're just following the rules and what they have as evidence, they will say that, yes, we're going to punish this person based on the rules of the country, and this person broke the rules, and according to the evidence, we'll punish them. But this makes sense, and this is something which can, and mostly they would incline towards punishing, because a person who has been guilty of a crime and they have evidence for it. But Allah knows even more deeper than these worldly governments, and Allah has the ability to understand, not understand, but Allah has the knowledge of the depth of the person's heart, whether that person can make true reformation or has made true reformation after they have confessed or after they have turned towards God. So anyhow, this is a more of a Tabligh related issue, but it springs from the Holy Quran, and this is one of the things which we learn from the Holy Quran so that we can improve our faith and how we can bring the faith to other people. Then the next part, Huzur says about the introduction, is that in the 9th ruku, the falsity of polytheistic doctrines has been exposed by means of an argument which the patriarch Abraham had with his people. The polytheistic is that pluralistic gods, or more than one god, or shirk, doctrines that are based on shirk. So the argument which the patriarch Abraham had with his people, and which has been dealt with at some length in this ruku. The next two sections describe how God bestowed favors and blessings on Abraham and his descendants, because they believe in God's oneness and strove hard to establish it in the world. In the 12th ruku, we are told that the mission of God's messengers never fails. Like rainwater, it gives fertility and freshness to a soil spiritually bleak and barren. The 13th ruku deals with the supreme subject that it is impossible to attain to God and have his true realization unless he reveals himself to men. It is therefore necessary that divine messengers should appear time after time, because it is through them that God reveals himself to the world. Believers are further admonished that though the beliefs and ideals of idolaters are false, they should have due regard for their susceptibilities when holding a discourse with them about their beliefs and doctrines. In the 14th ruku, however, we are told that for the attainment of the true faith, a corresponding wholesome change of heart is a sign. Without such a change, even signs and miracles prove of no avail. In this connection, some objections of disbelievers have been mentioned and refuted. The same subject is continued and developed in the next 4 sections. And the attention of believers is drawn yet more foolish objections of disbelievers. In the 19th section, a contrast is drawn between Islamic teaching, which answers and satisfies the demands of reason and justice, and the doctrines and practices of idolaters, which are based on neither reason nor argument. The latter are told that in view of this contrast, they cannot legitimately deny the necessity of divine revelation. In the last section, we are told that the Quran has been revealed to raise and honor even those nations to whom no revealed book has so far been sent, so that they may not feel low and debased before the people of the book. The message of the Quran, unlike that of former revealed scriptures, is for the whole of mankind, and it seeks to establish a real and permanent peace between different sections of humanity, as well as between man and his creator. So this portion which we are covering is about divine revelation. And the end portion, for those who would like to, to read the end portion of this surah, to learn about how the Holy Quran is such a beneficial book to those nations which have never been sent a book. This is a very, especially being Ahmadis living in the Western society, we know that although the Bible is a book that is adopted by the Christians, and the scriptures of the Old Testament and the New Testament have been revealed and adopted by them, but they were revealed actually originally to the Jews, which were not of the European descent. They were from Israel and the surrounding area. And then the scripture of the New Testament, which is a revelation given to Jesus, was the revelation given to Jesus when he was in Israel, and his followers were strictly monotheists, or they believe in the same belief as the Jews, and they were given this fresh interpretation of the Old Testament. So you can say that in fact this message was still only for the Jews, the New Testament, but it was later on adopted by the Western nations. So when we are preaching the message to those who either are Christians or have rejected Christianity, but they come from the West, we can tell them that the Holy Quran is a book for all people, and this book is also for you. It has been revealed for you, not just as we would say because it's in Arabic, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Arab, and the Quran was only for Arabs and the Muslims. It here is explaining that it is a book for all people. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وهو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به نبات كل شيء فأخرجنا منه خضيرا نخرج منه حبا متراكبا ومن النخل من طلعها قنوان دانيات وجنات من أعناب والزيتون والرمان مشتبها وغير متشابه انظروا إلى ثماره إذا أثمر وينعه إن في ذلكم لآيات لقوم يؤمنون. When I was reciting, I'll just repeat the last two verses here. I read ila thamarihi. It's actually ila thamarihi. So I'm just going to continue with unzuru because I don't want that to stand as a mistake there in the record. انظروا إلى ثمره إذا أثمر وينعح إن في ذلكم لآيات لقوم يؤمنون. So the translation of this verse 100 of Surah An'am, and it is he who sends down water from the cloud, and we bring forth therewith every kind of growth. Then we bring forth with that green foliage, wherefrom we produce clustered grain, and from the date palm, out of its sheaths, come forth bunches hanging low. And we produce therewith gardens of grapes, and the olive and the pomegranate, similar and dissimilar. Look at the fruit thereof when it bears fruit, and the ripening thereof. Surely, in this are signs for a people who believe. Excuse me. Under the commentary, Hazrat Muslim Anhu says that of this verse, that revelation is likened here to rainwater. And the verse answers the question, why, if revelation is indeed a blessing, is there discord and strife whenever a prophet is raised? You know, there's conflict, that is, discord is conflict, and strife is also conflict between those who oppose the those who oppose the prophet and those who accept the prophet. It says that just as after rainfall of all kinds of vegetation grow up, both bad and good, according to the seeds lying concealed in the earth, similarly at the advent of divine messenger, men who so far had remained mixed up become divided into good and bad. The words like and unlike imply that whereas some fruits resemble and some differ from each other, this may apply either to fruits of different kinds, which resemble one another in certain respects and differ in others, or to fruits of the same kind, which, although resembling one another in the main points, differ from one another in minor details, some tasting sweeter than others, and some varying in color or size. The same is the case with those persons who accept a prophet and follow divine guidance, whereas they bear great resemblance to each other. In one respect, they differ in another. Some are morally and spiritually more advanced than others. Again, some are more advanced in one phase of spiritual growth, others are more advanced in another. They attain to different stages of spiritual perfection and develop different characteristics according to their respective natural capacities and dispositions. The words, the ripening thereof, refer to the analogy of the ripening of fruit, just as it is unfair to judge a fruit by an unripe specimen. Similarly, it is unfair to find fault with the fruits of revelation because some believers are as yet in the process of spiritual development and have not attained perfection. This again, for our faith and understanding, is a very beautiful ayat alone for helping a believer to understand that all believers are at a different stage, and the wisest person who reads the Holy Quran and understands it will understand this. And we are blessed to have the commentary of Hazrat Muslim Anhu with us, so that we can differentiate, or that we can put to reason why there are among the believers among ourselves, those who have not developed spiritually, and they have not developed to such a perfection. And there may be criticism from among us, and in here specifically it is to those who criticize, who don't believe even in the Muslims. And the Holy Quran is given an explanation that you cannot give, you cannot give judgment based on an unripe fruit. And this is something which when we are trying to explain our faith and we're trying to explain to others, we should fully grasp and understand this meaning, and bring it to the people to make them understand this. And even during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were the Sahaba who have not yet spiritually advanced to such a high spiritual station. And in order for a person to really understand the real specimen, the real beauties of the faith, they should understand that from the highest specimen, that is the prophets themselves, that is the Sahaba, and that is those divines that we find throughout the history of Islam, the Mujaddideen, and also those very highly spiritual people from among us. And now we have, by the grace and blessings of Allah, the system of Khulafat and the Khalifa among us. So we should always look to that greatest and highest specimen of spiritual development, which is among us, which is both for our faith as well as for those who are looking in. And when we go for preaching and we talk and we bring the message, we should always use our beloved Hazur as the example for others. And we should also be striving as well as a as a follower of that, so that there can be some reflection in us, so that people can then judge and be attracted and follow the true message. وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ الْجِنَّ وَخَلَقَهُمْ وَخَرَقُوا لَهُ بَنِينَ وَبَنَاتٍ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ. This is the last verse which we've chosen in this section, verse 101, Surah An'am. The translation is, and they hold the jinn to be partners with Allah, although He created them, and they falsely ascribe to Him sons and daughters without any knowledge. Holy is He and exalted far above what they attribute to Him. The commentary has the Muslim Razilat Allah says that jinn are such beings as remain hidden or aloof from the common people. The verse signifies that man stumbles when he rejects divine revelation and follows his own judgment and reason, and associates the jinn and the angels as co-partners with God and attributes sons and daughters to Him. This subject matter, which we may have touched on in terms of the unity of God, and how when we covered Surah Al-Ikhlas, and the concept of shirk in our day and age. This is a vast subject, and the subject of jinn can be expanded even as well. And I will do this as there is our next topic, which I will be covering, which is under the topic of the Holy Quran and science. And as the jinn has a very vast meaning, we'll go into it to understand it and see how it relates to the modern day science. In particular, here though, this verse is talking about those hidden elements, or those hidden elements from among us. Particularly here, they're referring to men who are hidden from us, or those who are untouchable from us. And where I mentioned that in the commentary of Hazrat Masih, Rabi Rahimahullah said that we're in a time where people are worshipping those aside from the partners with Allah, they're worshipping people or big men in this world. But this subject about jinn, I would like to continue separately. Inshallah, I'll do that in my next class with relationship to science in the Holy Quran. So I hope that that everyone listening to will be interested to to continue with me. And if there are other people in your family who are maybe not so much interested, but this may be of interest to them, you can tell them about that, inshallah, as I usually have on Mondays and Wednesday's class. Jazakumullah, inshallah, I'll continue next this next Wednesday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.